Welcome back. The panel is here. NBC News senior Washington correspondent Hallie Jackson, author and presidential historian Doris Kearns-Goodwin, syndicated columnist George Will. He's author of the new book, American Happiness and Discontents, The Unruly Torrent, 2008 to 2020. Hopefully it's not an epitaph. And Kimberly Atkins-Storr, senior opinion writer for the Boston Globe. Welcome to all of you. Well, let me show you where Americans are on a vaccine mandate. You want to talk about being divided down the middle? We're divided down the middle. We asked about this. Should employers require vaccines for in-person work? Basically 50% yes, 44% no. And here's the political divide. We put that up. It looks very familiar. 82, it looks like the presidential approval rating, the way it splits there, Hallie Jackson. This is as much a political decision by the Biden White House as it was a scientific decision.
And they think it's a winner, Chuck. I mean, politically, there's obviously the public health perspective here, but I was talking with one White House official who said, listen, they believe that the politics are on their side on this. It was interesting to hear Governor Hutchinson talk with you about the business aspect of it, because I will tell you, it did not go unnoticed in the Washington Post yesterday, carrying a piece with, top business leader in the Houston area, not Houston, more blue than the rest of the state, but basically saying this is giving some businesses, and I'm paraphrasing here, businesses some cover. We haven't had the phone ringing off the hook. The White House took notice of that, right? They think that this is giving the ability to give some private businesses a little bit of cover and say, well, our hands are tied. OSHA's making us do this. So they are optimistic about it. That said, Chuck, the numbers that you just showed tell the whole story. This was politicized from, listen, April of 2020, right? May of 2020, when there was a different president in office who was taking a very different attitude towards mask wearing, right? And that's how this came about.
Kimberly, it's still an acknowledgement that the COVID's not working. The COVID strategy hasn't been working. Now, maybe there's nothing he could do with this current crew of unvaccinated people.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there is a percentage of people who, no matter what happened, they're not only not going to get vaccinated, but they're going to push against this and politicize it any way that they can. But we have seen, just to Hallie's point, some of the businesses that have already taken upon themselves, Delta Airlines, others, to impose vaccine mandates. What happened? A portion of their employees who hadn't been vaccinated got vaccinated. We saw it moving the needle. And I think that the president made that calculation. There's going to be pushback. Certainly once you have the federal government coming in with a mandate, however strongly it's rooted in the Constitution, which I believe that it is statutorily and constitutionally. People don't like that. There are going to be people who, that's one of the reasons that they pushed against the vaccine, is because of a federal mandate. But he had to balance that against what is actually going to work, what is actually going to get vaccines in arms, what is actually going to help businesses move forward and the economy move forward.
All right, but Doris and George, you guys look at this through decades of history. Is this going to work, or is this going to backfire?
Well, I think he had to take the step, and you had to make sure that it had the possibility. Look, mandates have been part of our history for so long. Go back to old George Washington. He mandated that his soldiers get inoculated against smallpox, and he made a great comment that I think appears today. He said, necessity not only authorizes what I'm doing, it compels me to do this, because if the smallpox rages, it'll be worse than the sword of the enemy. I mean, that's where we're at right now. I think for Biden to reestablish himself as the leader of the country, he had to respond to this crisis in a more muscular way. He was losing ground because the states were taking so much authority and talking about what they didn't want to do. And you have to, in a crisis, show that you're mobilizing every national resource, that you're giving direction to the country, and you're making the country feel that they are a whole, that they're collective. Individual liberty has to be balanced against public safety. And I think those are the decisions he finally made.
George,
the other George.
Yeah, the other George. Do you think this works, or do you think it'll backfire?
It'll work in the sense that it will encourage people to get vaccinated, and that's a good thing. The president's impatience is understandable, as is his exasperation, but constitutional government and the rule of law requires patience. Remember, Barack Obama said 20 times he could not unilaterally do what eventually he unilaterally did regarding immigration because he was out of patience. And the same thing is happening here with Mr. Biden. Courts, however, look askance at executive agencies that extract suddenly vast, indeed unlimited new powers from old statutes.
Well, OSHA, though, has had some success at having those authorities reinforced by the courts.
The Centers for Disease Control found out that when it decided that it could have an eviction moratorium in the name of containing a pandemic, that the statute would not permit that. This is either unconstitutional if indeed Congress has delegated essentially legislative powers to these executive agencies, that would violate the non-delegation doctrine, which, alas, has been dormant for a long time in the court. However, it's illegal if they are reading the statute and finding no mandate for this behavior.
It's going to be a court battle, right? I mean, that's where
Exactly.
this is going. And I think the White House understands
White House
that.
wants a court battle, weirdly enough, don't they?
Yeah,
They
and
want
they're
the
ready
attention.
for it. And they're ready for it, right?
And so
And
do
they feel like they have their
Republicans.
ducks in a row. And
Republicans
Kristi
want that
Noem,
fight,
I mean,
too.
right, you've shown this.
And in the meantime, you'll start getting more vaccines going. I mean, that's the key. I mean, OSHA has much more broad authority, signed by Nixon, by the way, than did the CDC to use public health for evictions. But OSHA is supposed to defend the workability and the safety of the workplace. And what is that doing now? This is what they're doing.
And that's a rational basis review. If it is a constitutional challenge, it's a very easy, a low bar for the Biden administration to clear legally.
But can we look back here? This is an acknowledgement that the strategy hasn't worked. I mean, I sit back there and it's like, and maybe again that the people that will listen to this administration have listened, and that's the problem. That we're at the end of that. But it doesn't feel like we saw Delta coming the way we should have.
So there's that piece of it, Chuck, right? The public health piece of it. There's what Governor Hutchinson said to you, which I thought was notable, which is we need to do something. He said we've got to overcome resistance, but a federal mandate creates more resistance. That in his view, that is something that is going to backfire. I have to say, at the top of your broadcast here, President Biden did say unvaccinated people can remove their masks. Yeah. We are in such a different planet now, Chuck, right? We're all a lot of people, I think, especially in this time, they're wearing their masks indoors all the time again, right? Mm-hmm. There were missteps along the way. That is something that is clear. But I think the defense that you'll hear is, and that I've heard is, the science has changed. Delta has evolved. This happened in a way we didn't expect it to happen.
There is a pandemic of mindless truculence in the country. We understand that. If you said the Battle of Gettysburg occurred in Pennsylvania, people say, wait a minute.
Let me tell you.
Wait a second.
On the other hand, the president said in his remarks, Thursday, he said, we are going to protect the vaccinated from the unvaccinated. Well, the whole point of being vaccinated is you're really not, in terms of the science and the data, you're really not threatened by the unvaccinated. And when the president says that, people say, well, if I need protected after I'm vaccinated, what's the point of getting vaccinated?
Well, we've done Gettysburg and George Washington. That's why we love having you guys on.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.